Welcome back. Hi, it's Alaina. What happens to your body when you work too much? In this video, I'll be covering the crazy and dangerous things that actually happen to your body and what you can do so that they don't happen. So stay tuned. First, I'll go over what actually happens to your body when you're overstressed and overworked, and a shocking study that will reveal how you could actually be working yourself to death, and why the Band-Aid solutions that most people do don't work. Plus, the exact steps my client Jan used to go from working 12, 14-hour days to 6. By the end of this video, you'll know how to be more productive without overworking your body. So let's dive in. When you work a lot, you're obviously in stress, right? I haven't met anybody who's not working all the time who isn't stressed out. And when you're in stress, you're releasing these hormones of stress, adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol, etc. And those hormones are actually addictive. So what happens is you go into stress from overworking, you're releasing more of those hormones, you go into more stress because those are the hormones of stress, you release even more, and then you come to having issues with this. Literally, you have a habit. You've become addicted to these hormones of stress. Now, we're the only animal that creates fight or flight, that creates stress from our thoughts alone. I mean, think about it, right? If a deer is getting chased by a coyote, assuming it outruns it, within 20 minutes, it's back grazing again. Animals go back to their parasympathetic nervous system within 20 minutes of having some stressful experience. Now, if that were us, and we had been chased by a coyote, for 3 days, we'd be telling everybody we knew about what happened to us. A year later, we'd be still talking about, can you believe it? Oh my God, you'd never believe what happened. 10 years later, we'd still be talking about it. Animals don't go to therapy. They don't need that. We're the only ones who create stress from our thoughts alone. Now, there have been many studies that show that you're actually counterproductive, meaning you're inversely productive after 55 hours. But there have also been relatively recent, like within the last couple of years, studies that show that when you work more than 55 hours a week, that your rates of like the most common diseases, hypertension, heart disease, stroke, etc., radically increase, and your risk of death increases by 29%. So I want to say that again so you really catch that, right? Because working more than 55 hours a week leads to a 29% increase in death. You are literally working yourself to death. And the worst part about it is you're inversely productive. So all those extra hours which are leading to disease of the body are not actually getting you any more productivity. So I put out new content all the time on how to get out of that hustle, how to work less and earn more. So make sure you like and subscribe so you stay up to date and you get notified when my new videos come out. So how do people typically deal with stress? Most people numb themselves out. Now maybe some people will go for a run or do yoga or things like that, and that does help. I'm not saying that those things don't help, but again, it's not getting to the root of the problem. And I'm a big fan of getting to the root of the problem, because until you get to the root, you're just treating a symptom. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. And there's a really big difference between problems and symptoms. So you can wipe away the symptoms. So for example, you may have an issue with your washing machine flooding. You keep mopping up the floor and keep taking out the water, and then you run your machine the next time and it floods again. You haven't dealt with the reason why it's flooding in the first place, and so it just keeps happening over and over again. So the key is to get to the root of the issue so that you can understand, because numbing yourself out, whether it be, anxiety meds, whether it be sleeping pills, whether it be TV, whether it be sex or porn, or even retail therapy, or even wine therapy, whatever it is not going to get to the root of the problem. And it's going to be very hard on your body because you're not dealing with the stress that you're having from overworking. Right? It's just perpetuating. It's like building layer on top of layer on top of layer until you get to the point where you're burned out or some other catastrophic disease happens that's like your wake-up call to finally get you to listen, which is actually what happened to me. I mean, I was a lawyer in the music industry for 18 years and highly successful. And when I became the executive vice president of the largest independent music company in the world at the time, all of a sudden I started to be very physically ill. I started to develop autoimmune issues. I was working 60 to 80 hours a week, and I wasn't heeding the symptoms until my body finally shut down and I had to leave. Like I literally, well, first of all, it wasn't my purpose, but I had to give it up because it was just making me so ill. So it's like the lesson, I call it the lesson of the feather, the apple, or the Mack truck, or the 2x4. So the universe might tap you on the shoulder and whisper in your ear. Most people don't listen. Then it'll start chucking apples at your head. And hopefully you'll listen when that happens. But if not, then it takes that 2x4 and wham, right across the head till you wake up. So what I'm trying to give you is the way to wake up without it having to be so painful and cause so much suffering. Here's the thing about working too much, is when you're working too much, you're probably not taking space and having real downtime. And maybe if you are taking any downtime, you're feeling guilty about taking the downtime. So that's not real downtime anyway, right? You're not present in the moment enjoying it. Now, they've actually shown, experts have shown that by actually taking real downtime, and I see this in my clients over and over and over again, that by taking real downtime, you're actually infusing your business with things that it would not get if you had your head to the grindstone all of the time. You're bringing in other energy that's actually helping your business grow and be far more productive. And ultimately, this isn't really about having a business to be productive. It's about having a business to create freedom in your life. It's about having a business to live your purpose. And what happens is when you're so focused on working so much, you've separated yourself from the real reason you're in business in the first place. And so going back and reconnecting to your vision, to your purpose, to understanding why you're there in your first place will allow you to take the time you need so that you can fill up your own tank and not get sick and run yourself down and burn yourself out. So let me tell you about my client, Jen. So when my client Jen first started working with me, she was working pretty much around the clock, like every waking hour. She had 2 young kids, and every waking hour she was working. But she was working so much and she was in so much stress that the only time, I was talking about the lesson of the Mack truck or the 2x4, she literally was showing up at the hospital with these random infections and they had no idea what was causing it. But they were making her sick and they were taking her out of her business. They were forcing her out of her business because she wouldn't take any downtime. And that's when she finally said, "Alaina, I need help. Can you help me, please?" And I was like, "Of course, I help people do this all the time." But she was just constantly in hustle mode, And her identity was so caught up in who she was as a business owner and being the primary income earner in her family that she could not separate it to give herself the space she needed to focus on herself. And the more space she created in her life, the more her business thrived. And this was in the middle of COVID, because when she first hired me, COVID first started, and everybody in her industry was going out of business, and she was making more money than she had prior to COVID starting. So then she found the time to work on her business, to work on herself. And in the process of that, it allowed her to grow her business dramatically in so much less stress on her body. So as a business owner, we run the risk of burning ourselves out every day by being in constant hustle and overwork. So you want to make sure you tune into my next video where I'll be telling you how to get out of burnout. Thanks, I'm Alaina, and see you in the next video.